and welcome to Finally Fabulous. Today I'm joined by my wonderful sister Bella. She's beautiful by name and by nature, kind, smart, wickedly funny, and totally wonderful as a champion of souls. From leading a multifaceted career to embracing her fuck it moment, relocating from London to the depths of the High Weald, we talk about peeling back the layers to reveal her true self, an introvert inside an extrovert's clothing. We talk about how purpose is powerful and how advocating for her daughter Ava as she designs her life with neurodiversity has really provided inspiration and reflection. And realising that the bravest thing in life is simply to give yourself permission that just being is enough. We have loads of laughs. We talk about sheep, pigs, mud and everything in between. I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I enjoyed chatting to her. Hello and welcome to Finally Fabulous with me, Kate. Today I'm joined by my beautiful sister, Bella. Hello, Bella.
Hi.
Bella is beautiful in every sense of the word. She's kind, caring, collaborative, empathetic, a true leader of people, inside work and also in general life. And it's not just me who thinks that in a biased way. I hear about it from hundreds of people, literally, that I've met across our journey. So it's an absolute pleasure for me to have you here today.
Oh, you're going to make me cry.
Welcome. Don't cry immediately.
Started.
You've had a career that spanned like many different career options and career jobs, different things. You've had loads of achievements. One of your achievements is looking like me. Well done for looking like me. And some people actually do mistake us, don't they?
Yes.
I mean, we don't think we look alike at all.
No.
But there have been stories of being in the same shop at the same time, me going and saying, please, can I have this in a size 12? And the lady saying, I've just sent someone to go and get it for you. Can you just be patient?
I remember a time when I was late for my own event and you arrived on time and my team thought you were me and you didn't tell them anything different. And I came in and you had sorted everything out that they needed.
That was really funny. And at that point, I was like, I could have a lot of fun pretending to be Bella.
Yes, but you're too lovely.
Too lovely. Well, that's what you thought. So we are here today to talk about many areas of your life. But one of the things really around your fuck it moment, which actually we're going to dive straight into today, which is uncommon for us, is your move from Ealing down to north of Rye in beautiful village Benenden, in the middle of nowhere. Yes. Describe that to us. What's it like? Well, I know what it's like, obviously.
We have one thing in our village, which is the village pub. And we're very lucky. It's run by one of my neighbours, Lindora, who's amazing. It is a brilliant pub. But apart from that, there is nothing. But what there is amazing people, great friends, and fantastic walks straight out of your front door, which I've always hankered after ever since we moved out of the countryside, actually.
Yeah.
Many decades ago. And yeah, it's just a really beautiful, peaceful, joyful place to be.
So here you are in the countryside. And did it take a while to adjust to that from moving from the city? Did it take a while to settle down?
I just felt like the moment we moved in, I felt like I was coming home, which was partly to do with the house. It's just got such a lovely energy. But partly to do with the fact that, you know, the countryside is just such a good place to be for my soul. It took Philippe quite a lot longer. He loves the area, but it took a while to fall in love with the house, which has been like the proverbial onion. Every layer we took off, there was another massive problem, like roofs falling in and
that's probably because how old is it?
Yeah, like the barn's about 1750 and the house,
right.
I think it's like 1800. So, and yeah, it needed a lot of TLC.
And what do you love about it most these days? Would you ever consider moving back to the city, do you think, now you're in that environment?
I don't know, I really loved Ealing and I would never have chosen to move from there, you know, unless there was a clear driver. We had great friends there. It's a brilliant place to raise a family and, you know, loads of great things about it, not least great green open spaces, which the Victorians invested in and we're all very grateful for. But now I'm down there, I think, struggle to go back, partly because of the stretch of the horizon, like you're saying, just having that space to breathe is amazing. But yeah, I just have found a really happy place. I built some really amazing connections down there. I worried when we went down, Ava was going into secondary school, I was working remotely. I was wondering how easy it would be for me to meet people and make friends. And I've just got some really amazing, wonderful friends down there, both on my lane and in our local town, Cranbrook, and through Ava's school. And I feel so grateful for all of those people.
What were the actual sort of drivers of the initial decision?
So Ava has dyslexia and had at that time just been diagnosed with ADHD as well. And we had been expecting her to go from the specialised school that she had moved to in about year 4, I think, into a mainstream school. And actually what the Ed Sykes was saying to us was that would really not be a good idea. She needs very small classes, and she needs to be with teachers who teach in a way that unlocks the potential of dyslexic children. Because the wiring is just completely different. So they just learn in a totally different way. And moving her to a specialised school, particularly the one she's in now at secondary, has just been a game changer, because not only do you have teachers who understand that dyslexic kids are absolutely brilliant at some things and absolutely terrible at other things, and that quite often those are the opposite of neurotypical kids, but as a dyslexic child, you're surrounded by other dyslexic children who learn like you, so you don't feel like you're failing.
You feel like one of many.
And you're enabled to succeed. Anyway. Exactly. And it's really helped her to focus on her strengths as well and nurture those, and she has many. We were told quite late in the day that our plan to move her back to mainstream, which had been the previous recommendation, was not the right one for her. And therefore we made a decision that we would find the right secondary school for her, and then we would rebuild our lives around that decision. So we looked all over the south of England, looked at a number of schools, and we found this school in the middle of Kent, in an area we'd never been to before, and fell in love with it immediately, kind of just had a gut feel this is the right place. And a lot of these schools are oversubscribed. So when Ava went in for a trial, that went very well. They offered her a place, and we accepted it within 45 minutes of the offer coming in, because we were like, we don't want to lose this. And then we sold the house, jacked in both our jobs, moved wholesale down to an area we'd never been to before. We knew no one. Bought a house down there before she'd even started at school, on the basis that we're going to be confident this is going to work. And what I think looked to some as a big sacrifice of career, of life on behalf of our child, actually has turned into a gift for all three of us.
That's really fantastic to hear. But I mean, I remember at the time that you were, going, I'm not sure if you made the right decision. And it was quite hard at the beginning. It
really
was
hard.
You were, you decided to leave that job that you were in. Philippe was was worried about leaving the city. He enjoyed being, as you said, being and having that city life, but knowing that this was right for Ava, and knowing that you'd made the decision collectively as a family, and it was you had the confidence to make it work.
But that first year was pretty tough, and it was really scary, because I had been at my previous company like 15 years, hadn't been in the market trying to find work, for all that time, had moved around a lot, doing, as you said, loads of different jobs. And when I came down, I, a bit inspired by you, set up my own business, limited company, just as a vehicle to consult, really. And then, of course, it takes surprisingly long time, doesn't it, for the work to start coming in, and for all those conversations you're having to start converting. And it was scary, but we were in it, so we just had to kind of
go with it.
And it's been a fantastic move, and I'm very grateful for it.
No, I'm pleased about that. And what about, if you'd like to talk about Ava, but also more through your lens about being a parent of a neurodivergent child, and has that changed your priorities or your focus at all?
Yeah, I think it has. I mean, first of all, I think as a parent of a neurodivergent child, first of all, you're a campaigner for a start. You have to really fight their corner. This is Ava's fourth school. In each of the schools that she's been in, we've had to, fight for her. We've had to make some tough decisions about taking her out of one place where she was super happy but was being completely failed in the classroom, another place where academically she was doing really well but it was just breaking her. So you have to be kind of always on, not so much about the child, but in the management, the environment that the child's in, because, neurodivergence for me is the divergence bit is just, it's divergence away from the way that society's set up. It's just not set up. And education in particular is not set up in a way where young people can thrive and be at their best and unlock their potential. And that's why specialist schools are so important, because they enable that to happen. And I know there's kind of a shift now politically away from specialised schools and back into putting specialised teaching into mainstream. If that works, that would be amazing. But my fear, not for Ava,
do you think it will work?
My fear is it won't work, it will fail, and a whole generation of children will suffer as a result. And even now, there are many neurodivergent young people who would be doing much better if they were in a specialised school. But in order to get them a funded place in a specialised school, which they're, legally have a right to, because they have a legal right to be taught in a way that they can access, it's incredibly hard. So unless you have the right resources, so already
it's incredibly hard.
It
takes many years to be tested. If you can shortcut that, if you have the funds, the resources, like you say, and if you know the right people, but it does feel like blockers, doesn't it, all the time for these young people, well, kids and also young people. And I was thinking, as you were talking about, because you're a formidable leader in, through your working life, through your career, you had senior positions. So some of that leadership and management that you were talking about, like how to manage other people and how to organize people, you would have probably learnt quite a lot through training and just on the job stuff being thrown at you. Whereas lots of people wouldn't have that kind of background. They wouldn't have that capability or even know how to go to people and say, right, you're doing it that way, but you should actually be doing it this way, and let's suggest a different way of doing things, and engaging people in the right way. And so it must be really tough for other people who don't have that kind of training or just that personality to deal with those things.
Yeah, I think that's true. But even more so, it's down to what resources do you have? So, do you have, to your point, the money to get your child assessed without waiting for 3 years and potentially having them out of school for all that time because they literally cannot cope? Do you then have the money to go to a specialised lawyer in order to get the funding for the school place, not knowing whether you're going to actually end up spending more money on the lawyer? I mean, only the lawyers win, right?
Yeah.
And so that means that the children who are already the most underprivileged, and the parents who are already the most stretched, who might be working 2 or 3 jobs to keep the household running, that they are the families that are suffering most. And that just feels incredibly wrong.
But do you think your approach to life and how you see life has changed through that particular journey?
Yes, definitely. I think, first of all, Ava has taught me so much. First of all, she gives brilliant advice. I mean, she is like the queen of, mummy, you need to sort out your boundaries for a start. But also just, she's really taught me that just following a path that is genuinely right for you is really the only way to live. And I've spent, when I look back on it, quite a lot of my life not having that as my primary factor, and finally working now in a company which is, very psychologically safe and really values everyone in the company, and for good reason. With the technical people we have are absolutely second to none, but it's created a space for me where actually I can just kind of breathe a little bit and settle and just be myself. And that's been a process of almost delayering. So I feel like I've been wearing a lot of layers right from when I was little, that I felt I needed in order to prove my worth. And those worked really well for me, right? Because they made me a super hard worker. I had perseverance like no one else. We're very alike like that. And that serves you to a certain point. And then you get to a point in your life, or I did anyway, where I just felt it's not serving me anymore. And worse than that, it's damaging for me. And in kind of stripping some of that away, it just feels like relief, really. Like everything just feels lighter and easier, even though actually in all parts of my life I'm delivering as much value, if not more.
Yeah.
But it's just a better fit for me.
About the psychological safety that you talk about, can you describe what you mean by that?
I think I mean just feeling safe to be yourself and speak up and feeling heard. And I suppose even more than that, just feeling that you're not walking on eggshells all the time. That's probably like at the nub of it.
Yeah.
And that kind of walking on eggshells that, maybe you're doing at work or maybe you're doing at home or in other parts of your life, it's really draining. And when you're in it, you can't let yourself understand how draining that is because you just wouldn't keep going on. You're just...
No, and it also zaps all your creativity, doesn't it?
Yes.
You can't think clearly. You can't take risks. You can't be bold in how you're thinking. Everything just gets quashed. Yes,
because you're living in your amygdala, in your lizard brain, right? You're living in fight or flight or freeze, fawn all the time. And, that's not an effective place to be for any role you're trying to carry out in your life. But also, God, it's no fun.
No, it's literally no fun.
No.
It's really stressful, and stress is no good for anybody, as we know, even more. My hair completely falls out when I get stressed, so I know how bad it is when that happens. So and do you think that's to do with the culture of the place where you are and how careful they're being about choosing the right individuals to work in that company?
Yeah, I think there's a lot in that. So if I think about my current company, Xlinks, which is a kind of renewable company, it builds mega projects. Those are development companies, and particularly of that scale and complexity of project, could be really tough places to work.
Yeah.
But actually, the founder has selected people who are not only good at what they do, but have very low ego. So I remember the founder saying to me, what's important to you? Because I came in initially as a consultant, and we were talking about should I come in-house? And he said, what's important to you? If you were going to go back in-house, what matters? And as the top of my list, and probably the top 3, is I don't want to work with any arseholes. And he was like, totally get that. And
to be honest, the fact that you could even say that in an interview, or say that, I know you went to an interview, but
it says a lot about him.
Yeah. And it just gives a sense of real entrepreneurial spirit, like we're all in this together.
Yeah. But and he is the archetypal entrepreneur, and being part of that kind of journey is really exciting.
Yeah. Very exciting. The other thing that I think springs to mind when you talk about psychological safety and what you're learning through your company and organization where you are now is, I see it in you in the way that you give back. So the way that you mentor young people, actually not always young people, all ages. Yeah. I'm really struck by the way that you take that on as like something that I love doing. It's very rewarding for you. So you've had all sorts of different people, like really different walks of life, come to you with different ideas and challenges. So you enjoy doing that, don't you?
I really love doing that, and I'm a big believer in sending the ladder back down. Frankly, I mean, careers aren't really a ladder anymore. They're more a jungle gym, aren't they? But
jungle gym is a very good description.
Yeah. If it was a ladder, then I've only climbed that ladder because I've had amazing mentors and supporters and career coaches, and I've got a thing that kind of sits somewhere in my brain called the Bella Boardroom, where I have a kind of selection of people who I go to for different reasons for my career, and including, by the way, peer coaching, which I think is massively undervalued. I've got peers of mine who are also very good friends who have got me through really tough situations, have given me incredible advice.
I couldn't agree with that more. I've talked to people at my level across for so many different things. And you shouldn't be afraid to ask somebody who's a peer, some people might see it as a competition in some way, or I should be like them, or I should know this already. But again, the importance of your tribe is having those sorts of people in your tribe. That's a safe place for you to talk to them.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if they're the right person, they will be someone who can step back out of the business and just be there as your friend, having your back, giving you the right advice. And sometimes with the right people, that advice can be pretty tough to hear.
Yes.
I've got a very close friend of mine at Sky who was always willing to, say the tough things as well as the lovely things. And that's been incredibly helpful to me. And also my previous boss at Excellence, he's just left actually, Dave Lewis, and he is incredible at just quietly giving you one or two bits of feedback that at the time you go, oh, that kind of quite I don't know what to do. And he doesn't say it. He says it in such a elegant way. So, but because it is so on the money,
yes,
you really feel it. And quite often it'll take 2 or 3 months for you to really process that and come out the other side with the change that he was hoping that you would make. But that is so incredibly valuable. And so, so coming back to the career ladder, I think, sending that, or the lift, sending the lift back down and helping other people, it's one of the easiest ways for people to enable others.
Yes.
And it's something that really, I think all of us should be doing.
I agree with that. And it's easy. It costs nothing. It's just your mind and what you think. It's something that they can take on board and do with what they like.
Yes.
It's not, you're not, really
you're giving
shaping their whole career or anything.
Yeah.
And the fact that you've had people for 10 to 15 years is like testament really to how good you are at doing it. You probably have loads
or to their patience.
Well, that's also true. And they still want to keep coming back for that advice that you're telling them.
But sometimes often it's advice, right? But sometimes it's just validating that their plan is the right one. And sometimes it's just giving them a space outside of their specific situation that they're in at the minute, where they can remember how good they are.
Yes.
And how smart and experienced and brilliant they are. And any of those options I just find incredibly rewarding.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important that we make it clear that mentoring is really easy and can be a light thing, but the impact that you have is sometimes exponential.
Life-changing. So just one of the things I wanted to talk also about was you talked to me before about the realization that you weren't an extrovert and actually were an introvert. And you touched on earlier about peeling off the layers to reveal the actual person who is Bella. And Ava having a view on that as well. Yes. Yeah.
Like me, Ava always has a view. Unlike me, she's nearly always right.
I love her. And it's, there's just that freshness of thought, I think, in Ava's mind, which is very clear. And she has a view on all of us, and it's not just you, let's face it. She does tell us all how she feels. But yeah, so how did that come about, do you think? That I know it was a gradual process, but when you kind of went, okay, I'm not that person at all. I'm actually this person.
I think I got an inkling of it actually during COVID, when suddenly we were all shut away from the world. I found that work had always been really busy, and then I had been filling my life, every little nook and cranny of my life was full of activities and social events and this, that and the other. And for Ava, but also for us as a family, and also for me, I just it was like constant busyness, which I think in itself is a little bit of a kind of crutch to make you not look at whether your life is really working for you, because you've been on the bus for so long, you don't want to know that it's been going in the wrong direction, right? So you're like, just keep going, keep running. And during COVID, when I had a minute to think outside of work, just having that space and time and a little bit of time to breathe was a real revelation to me, because I thought I'd always enjoyed doing all these extra things. And all of three of us were much, much happier having all of that fall away. Now, I mean, COVID was very much same storm, different boats, right? We were very lucky that we're in a house where we all had a bit of space. We had a tiny London postage stamp garden, but we had our own outdoor space. We're in Ealing, which had all these parks that, you know, when we're allowed to go to them, we could go to. And we were both working, so we had money coming in. You know, I had a lot of friends and colleagues who were in very, very different situations to that. So I kind of got an inkling that maybe I got myself wrong during COVID.
Yeah.
And then when I moved down to the High Weald, I've ended up building a very different life, as we talked about earlier. You know, first of all, kind of consulting, and now in-house, but remote and with a different kind of company. And I've just been in a environment and at a point in my life, I think, where it felt safe to do that delayering. And so it's mostly in the last few years for me that's happened. I think the awareness has been growing for various reasons, including the one I gave, like, over quite a number of years. But yeah, recognizing, and this was a particular thing during COVID, like recognizing that actually I had not just lived as an extrovert. I saw myself as like the ultimate extrovert, right? And realizing that was total bullshit. And I was expending a huge amount of energy
trying to be that person.
Maintaining that, was a total gift. I mean, at the beginning, it was a bit scary. I was like, who the hell am I then if I'm not this person?
Yes, I can imagine.
But actually, all you need to do is just, I was going to say lean in. You just need to lean out, actually, and just breathe and just recognize that, you know, being you is enough. But you need to be in a particular space where your stress levels are low enough
to allow
it to happen. Because those things are all survival mechanisms, right? And they work for a lot of us for a long time. Yeah,
and I think, you know, to be fair to you, you had been in survival mode for quite a long time from very early on. Yes. You know, you went, you know, from university into jobs, you know, and the jobs were all quite demanding. They had, you know, different issues along the way, some fantastic benefits also along the way. You met some incredible people, made some incredible connections. And I think, you know, you were probably molded into that way as well, you know, and this is the way we want you to behave. This is the way we need you to behave, which we talked about coming from our childhood as well. And, you know, our parents, we mentioned earlier about often parents see what, you know, presume or decide for you what this life is going to be for you as their child. And so we just live that life. And then eventually we go, actually, that's not going to be right for me. And luckily, you've created an environment for Ava where she feels like she's been able to say that very early on. And I hope I've done that for Alice. She might have different views. But I think, you know, the generational thing, it's also different. The way we're actually in an environment now, and that we can say, that's not me. I don't want to be that person anymore. I'm going to just say no to that. And I have, mine's much better now, but I used to have really bad FOMO about missing out on things. And for me, I think that was a bit of not just missing out, but if I'm not in that environment, not in that party or that socializing thing, I won't be in the conversation. So I'll actually be missing out on it in lots of ways as well. So I'll be excluded in some way, and I won't be involved in that community or that friendship group or something in the same way. I won't be able to take part in it. Whereas now I go, oh, well, if I'm not in it, I'm not in it. And I'll be doing this other thing instead that they won't be involved in, frankly. So you can just fuck off. And yeah, so I think the way that, you know, our paths are kind of laid out for us and saying, no, I'm going to take a different journey. I'm going to do something different. And, you know, good for you for making that decision to do that. Yeah.
It sounds like you're like, I'm watching you as well. You know, you are curating your life in a different way. And I feel like I'm doing that as well, making choices that work for me rather than trying to be everything for everyone else. And actually, I've taken not caring about FOMO to another level because I'm all about JOMO.
Which is?
The joy of missing out, man.
I love that. It's all about joy.
Yeah. Doing less to do more is a good thing.
So as you find your different friendships, do you find that they provide different needs for you now in this new environment, or is it similar but you use them in a different way?
Yeah, I feel it's not so much about need and more about just the kind of level of friendship, the kind of closeness that you have, I suppose. So, you know, like if you throw a pebble into a pond, there are concentric circles. And if you keep that in mind, the friends who are closest to you are the ones who, often you've been with for a very long time, and they just know who you are because they've seen you through so many phases. But it might be new people who you've just really connected with on another level. And then as you go out through the circles, you have people who maybe are lighter friends, and at the outside, maybe it's people who, you just don't expect to have your back in a crisis. That's, not what their makeup is in relation to you. Their connection with you is not that, but they're brilliant fun to go out for a drink with, or, maybe they're great advisors,
Yeah.
And I think I've become much better at kind of accepting that there are those different layers of friendship. And at one point I felt like I had to be there at the most intense level for every friend. Mm-hmm. And I've realized that that's not very sustainable for a start. But also it can be very overwhelming for people, and it's not what they want from that relationship. So you're kind of forcing this level of intensity into it. And actually, for me, kind of just gently matching people's energy is helpful because it creates an equilibrium. But equally, if you're doing that and actually you're finding that is fading, that friendship is fading away, that's okay. It just creates more space in your life for new connections, or more time with the people who, your connection really is, genuinely deep with. And I think, one of the things about life today is whoever you are time poor. And therefore, you really do need to think about ensuring that you maintain connection with the people who you really care about. And for me, living where I live now, like the only downside of it really for me is that it feels sometimes like a month to get.
I was going to say, I'm very happy for you living where you are, but oh my God.
It's a very unhelpful place in terms of, meeting up, definitely. Yeah. And by the way, things aren't always rosy down there. We had one situation where we have a hobby shepherd on our lane who needed somewhere to put his 22 ewes because all the grass in the orchard that he was using was gone. And Philippe, who has a bit of a hankering after having some sheep, was like, oh, then I can, this will be fun. I'll test whether I want to have sheep. And anyway, these sheep materialised in our paddock. But we have a dog who, in Cooper, who's a Manchester Terrier, who quite likes running after sheep. Cooper, I won't go into how this happened, but Cooper ended up in with the sheep, not on a lead, and without a collar on or anything. So it's early in the morning. I look out of my bedroom window and I can just see and hear Philippe running around the field. There's like a herd of sheep. Then there's Cooper running after them. There's Philippe running after them going, Cooper! Cooper! And I'm like, oh my God.
Oh no.
And the next thing I know, Ava's running out barefoot because it's early in the morning on the weekend. And she is running down to the field through all of this like sheep poo. And so now we've got the sheep and Cooper and Philippe and now Ava trying to catch up. And finally I was like,
it's like a comedy sketch.
I know. I was like, right, I'm going to have to go down. So I go and throw myself into the frame.
As well.
I'm in my pajamas. Anyway, finally, Ava actually managed to wrestle Cooper to the ground, literally like an American footballer, just threw herself at Cooper. The sheep were all fine. It was all good.
What are the kind of moments of joy that you have apart from stories like that and walking in shit?
Yeah. That's our deepest moment of joy.
Deepest moment of joy.
Well, one of the things that I've done recently, which again, I don't think I would have done if I hadn't have moved, and I wouldn't have done if it wasn't for Ava, is take up horse riding again.
Oh, yes.
Which, as you'll remember, when I was little, was like a deep joy. I was very lucky to kind of be asked to ride for several years, a pony that didn't have a rider. And I got back into riding about 6 months ago and go with Ava once a week. And we also went out to Morocco and went on a horse riding holiday in October. And first of all, it's just so joyful to do something like that with Ava, something she just is like, she is a brilliant rider. But also she just loves it. Like she's in her element. It's just been a great thing to do for my mental health, but also just a joyful thing to come back to. And it's been a really good reminder for me that you don't have to do whatever the trend is or whatever other people are doing. It doesn't have to be breath work, although, I love that as well. But you can find different ways and to make your life better or to add value or whatever you want to do. And the trick is to find a way that really works for you, that feels right for you and brings you joy, because then you'll sustain it.
Yeah.
And that will help you to sustain others.
And let's not forget that Ava, not to take too much away from Ava, but some of the things that she's learned for sure do come from you and the way that you brought her up, and and the environments that you put her in, and encouraging her and to be how she is. And it feels in a way that it's almost like Ava's almost like reflecting you back to you with some of the things that she says to you. Yeah, for sure. So a few takeaways. For our lovely listeners. I think we've talked about motherhood as a lens, but not just the headline. There's lots about you as an individual. Remember that you are a person in your own right.
Yeah, I think it's really important, isn't it? Because I think when your children are super little, first of all, the world sees you as a mum first.
Yeah.
So that's
always
a weird shift.
I was known as like Alice's mum for so long.
Yes, yeah.
Which I was like, my name's actually Kate. Yeah. And they're like, oh, hello, I'm actually Sarah. And I was like, hello, actually Sarah.
You're actually your own person. Crazy. With your own identity. But also I think it's so all-encompassing, isn't it? Motherhood at that age and parenthood at that age that, you kind of just have to go with that.
Yeah.
And then as your children get older, you can take yourself back a bit. I completely agree with that it's a lens that's useful and it's a really important part of your life, but it's not be all and end all. And, for me, spending time doing for myself, whether that's horse riding or breath work or whatever, spending time with people who bring me joy, doing work that I love with people I love working with, all of that is so important to me. And I don't feel horses for courses, but personally, I don't feel that I would be living to my fullest if I was only a mum. And maybe that's partly because of our mum.
Yeah, I think so.
That she, did such an amazing job of building her own career and, is such a role model for us in that way.
And another thing we talk about is redefining impact and purpose in like a sort of quieter, more human way, almost like different sense of that whole purpose, and therefore making it's much more powerful and much more transformative, or can be much more transformative and collaborative. And it's, the environment that you're working in now really feels like that culture is very much on those lines.
Yeah, I think that's true. But I also think increasingly, and I'm very late to this, I've got friends who have been saying this for decades, but like impact and purpose is just as powerful if you're doing it on an individual level as it is if you're doing it on a mega project intercontinental level. And if you're thinking about it on the individual level, say, the mentoring point that we were talking about earlier, I think that enables you to recognize your own purpose and impact in the world in a way that's kind of much more grounded into where you have control and what you can bring. So I think purpose and impact comes in many shapes and sizes, and it's good to have lots of shapes and sizes in your life.
For sure.
Well. And
then finding psychological safety. So at home, at work, in friendships, we talked about that quite a lot. So I think that's really, I would say that's a really big takeaway from the conversation today.
Yeah, and I suppose my final thought on that would be, if the environment isn't making you feel safe and it isn't bringing you joy, then change the environment.
Yeah.
There's lots of, each environment works for some people. There's no right environment, but there is a right environment for you.
Yeah. So don't feel like you have to stick with something just because you're in it. You can just always press stop and get out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And make a change, make a difference. Well, those are really helpful takeaways. Thank you. We love your moments of joy, and we love the stories about the sheep. Poor sheep.
Poor sheep, honestly.
So are you here sitting in front of me today feeling finally fabulous?
I am feeling finally fabulous.
Yay!
Not least thanks to this conversation. Thank you for inviting me.
You're very welcome. And we just really loved hearing all your stories and sharing them with us today. And I'm just so thrilled that you're feeling calm and have JOMO and enjoying your breath work and everything. So yeah, it's really brilliant.
Go JOMO.
Go JOMO. So love to you, and thank you very
Big
much.
love.